earlier in the session. What this bill does is restructures and recasts the examination process for those seeking licensure in the state of California as marriage family therapists, clinical social workers, and licensed professional clinical counselors. Did you have a... Oh, okay. Under current law, applicants for licensure must take and pass a standard written exam and then take a clinical vignette examination upon completion of all other eligibility requirements. The proposed examination restructure will enhance consumer protection by requiring those who are still in training to take and pass an exam on legal and ethical practices of their professions. This bill will streamline and prepare the Board of Behavioral Science Examiners to align with the national testing system, and that will support greater portability and reciprocity for these important professions in California. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. This has got to be the loneliest presentation.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Yamada moves the call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
File items 75 through 78, pass and retain. File item 79, SB 263, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 263 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to water.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to be presenting to so many of my esteemed colleagues on such an important bill. This is a bill about wells and groundwater management, another one of our efforts to continue to move California's groundwater management policies into a better place. Every time a well is drilled, the driller is required by law to provide the Department of Water Resources with a document called a well completion report. And these reports, also known as driller's logs or well logs, are basically a record of the drilling and the construction of the well. They provide very useful information that is going to be necessary if any further work needs to be done by that well. But it also provides critical information on the depth to groundwater, the type of soils encountered, the elevations, information that can be very important to hydrologists, groundwater managers, academics, and others who have an interest in better managing our groundwater basins. Unfortunately, those who would benefit from this information can't have it, because for the last 50 years, California's had a policy of keeping all of this restricted to just government agencies. Now, it's important to note that California is alone among Western states when it comes to that policy, and this bill is an attempt to bring California in line with 10 of 11 Western states who do provide access, public access to well logs. In fact, they go even further than this bill would, because in 10 of the 11 Western states, they make this information available already over the Internet. It's interesting to note that when it comes to oil and gas wells, this is already the law. All of that information is filed with Dogger, and it is public record. So this is a bill that simply seeks to make well log information public information in the very same way we do for oil and gas drilling wells. The bill was amended on Monday. We took amendments that removed opposition from the Department of Public Health and removed concerns, rather, and moved the Department of Water Resources into a support position. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in opposition to this bill. While many of the components of this bill are supportable, I have grave concern about making these wells, the information of their location and where they're located, available to the public, and I believe it opens up private property to the potential of harm. Thank you. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Huffman, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The location of wells right now is not a hard thing to find. You can get it through Google Earth. You can get it in 10 of the 11 Western states. This is not seriously a national security issue. But we do need to make available not so much the location of these wells, but the very, very important information that's in these logs regarding groundwater conditions, regarding the hydrology, the substrates that the well drillers are encountering. This is going to be important public information to help us better manage groundwater going forward, and I respectfully request an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Huffman moves the call. File item 80, SB 296. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 296 by Senator Wright, enacting to gangs.
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. 296, as many of us recognize, disenfranchised communities, and when I make that statement, I specifically am referring to poor communities and communities of color, are much more likely to be the targets of gang injunctions. This measure will allow people accused of being affiliated with a gang and therefore put on an injunction list, a way to simply petition the court without spending thousands of dollars in their effort to do so. This measure is designed to allow those accused of gang affiliation to seek removal if they have been improperly accused. SB 296 requires the Judicial Council to create a form to petition the court for relief from their court-ordered restrictions. This form will be attached to the injunction notice itself. The petition content is taken from existing provisions now used in injunction petitioners by the Ventura District Attorney and the City of Los Angeles. SB 296 is drafted to allow the court to hold an evidentiary hearing on the petition to receive additional evidence if the court desires. In short, in current municipalities that have gang injunctions, there literally is no process by which a petitioner can file to have themselves removed. So we have circumstances in which individuals are included in a gang injunction based on where they live, based on race, whatever the case may be. And short of going through the civil court procedure, which requires that they hire a private attorney themselves, there is literally no process by which they can petition to be removed from the court injunction. It's gone through the process. I had the opportunity to hear this bill in public safety, of which I'm a member, and would strongly suggest your consideration, and I vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Mitchell moves the call. File items 81 through 83, pass and retain. File item 84, SB 622, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 622 by Senator Corbett and others, enacting to sex offenders.
Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 622 clarifies that out-of-state sex offenders are required by state law to register with the California Department of Justice when they move to California. Senate Bill 622 allows the Department of Justice to resume its practice of reviewing details of all out-of-state convictions in order to determine whether sex offenders are required to register in California. This process protects both the registrants by ensuring that California law does in fact require them to be registered in the state, and the public by ensuring that sex offenders are registered as required by state law. If courts were to undertake a review of records similar to the one now undertaken by the Department of Justice, courts would be required to obtain records and statutes from other states and review every case at the time of registration. Such a review would result in a significant increase in state costs. Senate Bill 622 is sponsored by California Attorney General Kamala Harris and has received strong bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further question, Mr. Amiano.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I rise in opposition to this bill. I recognize the goal of this measure is to make sure that out-of-state sex offenders don't go under our registration requirements, but I do have concerns about due process. This bill allows a state agency to make these determinations at a staff level. And while I trust the current staff at the DOJ and the current AG, we all know that administrative changes happens, and without some review or oversight of personnel, I have concerns about due process. I urge your no vote on this measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Ms. Buchanan, you may close.
Right. Registrants are able to appeal through a writ filed through the Superior Court if they feel that they are not required to register. And the Department of Justice does acknowledge that the 6 offenses involving voluntary contact with teens ranging in age from 14 to 17 are not mandatory registrable offenses under the Hofshire decision. So I do think there are adequate protections in place, and I urge an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 1. Measure passes. File items 85 through 90 pass and retain. File item 91 has been dispensed with. File item 92, SB 309. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 309 by Senator Liu, an act relating to care facilities.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 309 will give youth with disabilities the choice of to participate in daycare programs with their peers rather than being forced to permanently transition to an adult program. Historically, students with disabilities have been allowed to remain in a licensed after-school program until the age of 22. Only recently has this process been changed because of inconsistencies in current law. If these youth cannot attend after-school programs, they may be placed in one-on-one supervision at a much higher cost to the state and before they are ready for an adult environment. SB 309 will allow disabled youth to gain independence and skills at their own pace and will fully support them in their transition from childhood to functioning adult in our society. This bill has received no votes, and costs have been determined to be minor and absorbable, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 52, noes 2. Measure passes. File items 93 and 94 pass and retain. File item 95, SB 16. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Rubio, an act relating to energy and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 16 establishes an expedited process for the review and issuance of incidental take permits within the Department of Fish and Game for renewable energy projects. The bill is a result of many hours of negotiation and compromise. This bill sets clear and reasonable timelines, increases communication and accountability between the Department of Fish and Game and the applicant, all without compromising the Department of Fish and Game's mission to protect species. As we have all heard from the business community, certainty and predictability greatly affect their ability to secure financing. Investors in renewable energy need to have some ability to predict when they can move past permitting and begin construction of their projects. The process to secure an incidental take permit is after a long and thorough CEQA process. Streamlining permitting for renewable energy is important now more than ever. We have just passed a 33% RPS standard, and we need these projects to move forward in order to meet that goal. SB 16 is double joined to AB X 113 and has received bipartisan support. There's no known opposition. And on behalf of Senator Rubio, I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I must rise to oppose this bill. There's a lot of good points in here, but at the same time, there's a lot of points that we have opposition to. Remind the members there's a 2/3 vote, and respectfully ask for a no vote or abstention.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire. I'm sorry, Mr. V. Manuel Perez. Would you like to close?
If I may, appreciate
Let's
that.
strike the roll.
Just wanted to state out loud that the renewable energy industry came together for the compromises, and they supported the fees as well in AB 1X13. And we already know that the Department of Fish and Game does not have the resources to adequately staff the permitting of their projects. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, this was renewable energy industry coming together, saying that we need to expedite the process. Let's build out the renewable energy potential throughout the state of California. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Perez moves the call. File item 96 and 97 pass and retain. File item 98 has been dispensed with. File item 99, SB 859. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 859 by Senator Padilla and others, an act relating to vehicles.
Ms. Campos.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In recent months, we have seen two new plug-in electric vehicles, the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt, be introduced into the car market. Over the next 10 years, at least 1 million electric vehicles are expected to hit the roads in California. As electric vehicles are entering California's markets, local government and utilities are working together to overcome challenges to integrate electric vehicle charging into the electricity grid. This bill allows electric utilities to access DMV information on the type of vehicles owned and residence location of electric vehicles owners so the utilities can better anticipate electrical grid demand. This will help ensure charging of these cars do not create a disruption in electric service in the neighborhoods and our business districts. These are adequate privacy protections in this bill to limit what information utilities can access and what purpose this information can be used for. The bill will allow for the type of planning necessary to ensure electric vehicle owners can utilize their investment, stimulate our economy, and protect our environment. This bill has been enjoyed by strong bipartisan support throughout the process. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 16. Measure passes. File item 100, SB 602. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 602 by Senator Yee, an act relating to privacy.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I present on behalf of Senator Yee. SB 602 prohibits unauthorized disclosure of private information regarding the books we read, whether it is purchased through the Internet or at the corner bookstore. Currently, reader protections in California statutory law extend only to library records. This bill will update reader privacy laws for the digital age. The sale of electronic books has increased significantly over the last several years and has the privacy concerns associated with their use. Digital book services have the ability to collect and retain very detailed private information about readers. Government entities and civil litigants are taking advantage of detailed records held by the Internet, brick-and-mortar companies, and the outdated privacy laws to try to learn what people are reading by using subpoenas to request information. There's no evidence of wrongdoing required for issuance of these subpoenas. I ask for your aye vote to update California's privacy laws to protect reader privacy.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 9. Measure passes. File item 101 pass temporarily. File item 102, SB 127. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 127 by Senator Emerson, an act relating to workers' compensation.
Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill simply seeks to ensure that the Division of Workers' Compensation annually updates the current procedural terminology codes for physician services in the official medical fee schedule. It is important that these codes are updated and current so that providers treating injured workers can clearly communicate with workers' comp payers on the medical treatment performed and billed. As it stands now, they haven't been updated since 1997. This is a straightforward bill that is necessary to improve communication between the parties while also reducing administrative costs of billing and processing for both payers and providers. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote? Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 62, no 0. Measure passes. File item 103. Pass and retain. File item 104. Pass and retain. File item 105. Clerk will read. SB 599.
Senate Bill 599 by Senator Kehoe and others, enacting to life insurance.
Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill protects consumers without imposing unfair or undue burdens on insurers. This bill provides policyholder protections and industry concerns regarding an expanding life insurance payout practice called retained asset accounts. Current law does not establish guidelines for the use and regulation of retained assets accounts. As a result, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners has called for states to establish ground rules for disclosure and payout options of these type of accounts. This bill is the second of 2 bills regarding retained asset accounts. It's supported by both industry and consumer groups. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.
Okay.
Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Measure passes. File items 106 and 107 pass and retain. File item 108 pass temporarily. File item 109 pass and retain. File item 110 pass and retain. File item 111. SB 164, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 164 by Senator Simitian, enacting to taxation.
Mr. Perea.
Madam Speaker and members, personal income tax law authorizes individual taxpayers to designate on their personal income tax contribution amounts in excess of their tax liability for the support of 15 voluntary contribution funds. 2 of these funds, the State Children's Trust Fund and the Prevention of Child Abuse and the Rare and Endangered Species Preservation Program, are set to sunset on January 1st, 2013. This bill would extend the sunset date to January 1st, 2018. Both the Children's Trust Fund and the Preservation Program have enjoyed significant success since first appearing on the PIT in 1983. The Franchise Tax Board reports that in the calendar year of 2010, the Children's Trust Fund received $448,000 in contributions, while the Preservation Program received $578,000 in contributions. Contributions to the Children's Trust Fund are allocated to the Department of Social Services for innovative child abuse and neglect prevention and intervention programs. Contributions to the Preservation Program are allocated to the Department of Fish and Game for various programs for endangered and rare animals and plants. These 2 funds have consistently received some of the largest contributions of any voluntary contribution fund. It is clear that they are popular funds that support causes deemed worthy by California taxpayers. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, noes 2. Measure passes. File item 112, SB 215. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 215 by Senator Huff and others, enacting to invasive aquatic species.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Member, SB 215 by Senator Huff simply extends for 5 years the sunset on provisions that allow the Department of Fish and Game to implement measures that prevent Drysonid mussels from spreading. Current data shows that the efforts by the Department of Fish and Game have been effective. Drysonid mussels are an invasive aquatic species and have been found in various California waterways. They cause significant environmental and economic damage when they infest waterways and clog water intake pipes. Mussel inspection programs are funded by approximately $4.3 million in special fund money, specifically the Harbors and Watercraft Revolving Fund. If we don't spend this amount to continue funding the Department of Fish and Game's efforts, we could be forced to shoulder billions of dollars in infestation damage. This bill will keep the Department of Fish and Game mussel inspection program in place. The bill is strongly supported by water districts and counties, and it has no opposition, no formal opposition. It has not received any no votes, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Yeah.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, no 0, measure passes. File item 113, pass and retain. File item 114 has been dispensed with. File items 115 through 119, pass and retain. File item 120, SB 405, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 405 by Senator Corbett, and acting to judges.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This bill simply ratifies the authority of the court system to elevate 10 subordinate judicial officer positions to the position of judge. They'd be dealing with family court matters in particular. This bill has no opposition and I think is uncontroversial. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 24. Measure passes. File items 121 through 129, pass and retain. File item 130, SB 611, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 611 by Senator Steinberg, and acting to instructional strategies.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. By virtue of its role in defining A to G rigor, the UC has profound influence over what happens to kids in high school, what courses they take, the way the curriculum is delivered, whether or not those kids end up going on to the UC itself. Too often, these rigorous courses and curriculum do not provide students with hands-on applied learning experiences that keep them engaged while connecting the learning with real jobs. SB 611, part of Senator Steinberg's four-bill education reform package, seeks to change that. The bill expands and codifies in state law the UC Curriculum Integration Institute. The institute is a robust, centralized mechanism for high school teachers, university faculty, and other experts to develop and disseminate new model courses that provide students with rigorous academic content that's linked to real-world application and relevant to the needs of industries that California seeks to grow. SB 611 calls for the UC Curriculum Integration Institute to develop, disseminate, and promote career-oriented, integrated academic and technical education courses that meet course requirements for admission to the UC and the CSU and align with high-priority California industry sectors. It's sponsored by the UC. The bill has support from a broad group of stakeholders, including the California Teachers Association and the California Chamber of Commerce. The bill has no opposition and passed the Assembly Higher Education Committee with bipartisan support. I respectfully urge an aye vote.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. I'm rising in opposition to this bill because I think that the market will determine what areas we need students to be taking classes in, and they can choose that. And in many cases, you're going to have local specialties in areas where, you know, for instance, in an ag area, it would make sense for students to be taking classes in that. In areas where there's lots of manufacturing, there's going to be a natural partnership with businesses. I don't think we need the government to come in and sort of dictate and mandate this, and so I would encourage that we just let the marketplace set that. Urge a no vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Block, you may close.
Yeah, the reason the Chamber of Commerce has taken a support position on this, a strong support position, is they realize that students are dropping out of California schools at an awful rate, and that can be changed by linking what they're learning to what careers they're going to pursue. It motivates students to know, why are we learning this? All this bill does is it encourages, both the Chamber and the California Teachers Association agree, it encourages students to stay in school because they learn why they're studying, what they're studying. This is a bill that, again, had bipartisan support in higher ed, and I urge your support.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 18. Measure passes. File item 131, pass and retain. File item 132, SB 679. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 679 by Senator Pavley, enacting to energy and making appropriation therefore.
Passed temporarily. File item 133 through 137, pass and retain. File 138 has been dispensed with. File 139 through 141, pass and retain. File item 142, SB 44. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 44 by Senator Corbett and others, enacting to public utilities.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 44 requires natural gas operators to improve communication and coordination with first responders by requiring the California Public Utilities Commission, in consultation with the California Emergency Management Agency, State Fire Marshal, and the California Fire Chiefs Association, to adopt much-needed emergency response standards. SB 44 will address gaps exposed by the San Bruno explosion in the federally required emergency response plans. This bill is a result of numerous meetings with California fire chiefs and Pacific Gas and Electric, and is supported by fire chiefs, firefighters, utilities, and consumer groups. SB 44 will help ensure that we are prepared in the event of another natural gas emergency. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, members.
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in support of this bill, as the recent hearing of the Accountability and Administrative Review Committee into what happened in San Bruno and a little more distant past in Rancho Cordova revealed there is no coordination to speak of, and certainly no requirement of having emergency response standards. This bill moves us importantly in the right direction of ensuring that we can save lives and save neighborhoods in the future, and I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 61, no 0. Measure passes. File items 143 and 1 through 145, pass and retain. File item 146. SB 140. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 140 by Senator Lowenthal, enacting to pupil instruction.
Mr. Fuentes.
Members, in August of 2010, the State Board of Education adopted the Common Core standards in English, language, arts, and mathematics. Likewise, California recently became a governing state in the Smarter Balanced Consortium. The consortium is responsible for developing new assessments aligned with the Common Core standards. In order for our schools to be ready to implement the Common Core standards and eventually new assessments, they need instructional materials to begin implementing curriculum. This bill establishes a streamlined, temporary process for the approval of instructional materials that provide a bridge between the state's current standards-aligned instructional materials and the Common Core standards. The 2011 Budget Act included $3.5 million in federal Title I carryover funds to support initial implementation of the Common Core standards, including a state-level process for approval of supplemental instructional materials specified in this bill. SB 140 by Lowenthal gives maximum flexibility and options to school districts and helps ensure that students have the opportunity to learn the Common Core standards to be prepared for any future assessments on those standards. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. Measure passes. File items 147 and 148 pass and retain. File item 149 has been dispensed with. File item 150, SB 300. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 300 by Senator Hancock, an act relating to pupil instruction.
Ms. Bonilla.
Madam Chair, Speaker, and members, SB 300 provides a public process to update the state's K through 12 science standards. The bill provides for the appointment of a group of science experts and teachers who will recommend comprehensive science standards to the State Board of Education by March of 2013, with adoption by the State Board of Education by July 30th of 2013. The state's current K through 12 science standards do not include any mention of biotechnologies, nanotechnologies, or even that Pluto is no longer considered a planet. Current academic content standards for science were last adopted in 1998, fully 13 years ago. California has the 8th largest economy in the world, and educating scientifically and technologically literate citizens is critical to maintain our edge in the world economy. Unfortunately, in 2011, our students do not have access to the most current, cutting-edge scientific information and instructional materials to sustain this position in the 21st century. Science education is an important component in education of well-rounded students and critical to anyone entering all the fields of engineering, technology, chemistry, and a multitude of disciplines. This bill is supported by the California Science Teachers Association, the California Federation of Teachers, among others, and has received no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. Measure passes. File items 151 and 152 pass and retain. File item 153, SB 402 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 402 with amendments.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is for amendment purposes. Amendments to SB 402 are technical. They clarify the exemption from 1 to 3 displays and located within 1,800 feet of an intersection of the state highway routes. There's no opposition to these amendments, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately, I must oppose these amendments and respectfully ask for a roll call vote.
Mr. Hagman opposes these amendments. We're going to have a roll call vote. Mr. Calderon asks for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman asks for a no vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. These are on the amendments. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 39, noes 24. The amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File items 154 through 158 pass and retain. File item 159 has been dispensed with. File item 160 pass temporarily. File item 161 has been dispensed with. File items 162 through 170 pass and retain. File item 171 has been dispensed with. File item 172 went to the inactive file. File item 173 has been dispensed with. File item 174 pass and retain. File item 175 has been dispensed with. So we're going to go back to the top of the file. If there are members who wish to take up their bills, can you let me know? If you have not already, let me know before. Okay, so we're going to go to file item 13, AB 360. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 360 by Senator Brownlee and others, an act relating to charter schools.
Ms. Brownlee.
This is not the bill that I wanted to take up. It's AB 607. I think it's a little later in the file.
Okay, sorry. File item 13, pass and retain. File item 14. 14, AB 607. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 607 by Senator Brownlee, an act relating to vehicles.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 607 would authorize a 5-year pilot program to allow the City of Santa Monica buses to display advertising on illuminated signs that change or stream across only under certain conditions. This looking for amendments in the Senate. The amendments in the Senate were technical in nature and simply limit the number of buses that can be equipped with digital advertising signs to no more than 25 buses out of their fleet of 200 in the first 2 years of the project. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Norby.
I rise in support also of AB 607. It's about local control. It's about the City of Santa Monica using innovative and creative ways to locally raise revenue and improve service for their bus riding commuters. And I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, noes 1. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we've got 4 items on call. We're going to take those items up. File item 74, SB 704. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, noes 0. Measure passes. File item 79, SB 263. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Huffman moves the call. File item 80, SB 296. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ms. Mitchell moves the call. And file item 95, SB 16. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This requires 54 votes on the urgency. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Perez moves the call. File item 32, AB 914. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 914 by Assemblymember Atkins and according to state commissions.
Ms. Atkins.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. AB 914 is a simple bill that seeks to address unfair trade practices in the cut flower marketplace. When cut flower growers have inaccurate information in the marketplace regarding their product, they have no option but to sell their commodity for that misinformed value at the financial detriment to growers. This bill would, in accordance with procedures approved by the Secretary of the Department of Food and Agriculture, allow the California Cut Flower Commission to collect and disseminate pricing information on a daily basis. Allowing the market to fluctuate based on credible information provides the opportunity for growers to receive fair market value for their commodity. Members' amendments were taken in the Senate to add a tracking system for California avocados, which will enhance the Avocado Commission's ability to deal with any food safety issues should they arise. The bill provides the flexibility for the California Avocado Commission to collect appropriate information in order to track where avocados originate without being overly prescriptive. This information would also be used for reapportionment for the Commission, which occurs every 5 years. This bill has received bipartisan support throughout the process and has received no votes. I would ask for your support.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 72, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 108, SB 943. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 943 by the Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development and accrediting to Healing Arts.
Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 943 is the Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee's omnibus bill. The bill makes minor changes to improve the ability of healing arts boards to carry out their regulatory duties. There's no opposition to the bill. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, at the request of the authors, please remove file item 178, SB 806, from the consent calendar.
Clerk will note.
Also, I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62, file notice requirements, to allow the Committee on Governmental Organizations to meet and to hear SB 402 by Mr. Vargas on Thursday, September 1st, upon call of the chair in a room to be determined.
Clerk will note.
Also, I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62, file notice requirements, to allow the Local Government Committee to meet and hear AB 768 by Mr. Gatto today upon call of the chair in a room to be determined.
Without objection, clerk will note. Okay, we have 3 items on call. We have the consent calendar and 1 adjourn in memory. I hope the floor jockeys are going around looking for votes. So, giving you a heads up. Hold on. Okay. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring file item number 153, SB 402, Vargas, to the Committee on Governmental Organization. Okay, we're at the consent calendar. Second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 715 by Senator Calderon and others, and act relating to annuity transactions.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0.
And Senate Bill 456.
Ayes 69, no 0. The consent calendar is adopted. We have 1 adjourn in memory. Mr. Chesbro. Okay, local government will meet upon adjournment in room 447. Local government will meet upon adjournment in room 447. Mr. Chesbro? Adjourn in memory. Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise with great sadness to ask that we adjourn in memory of an elected official who was shot down doing his job in Mendocino County. Jerry Mello was first elected to the Fort Bragg City Council in 1996 after serving a 4-year term on the Planning Commission. He served as Mayor Pro Tem in 1998-2000 as mayor from the year 2000 to 2004, and as chair of the Coastal Cities Issues Group for the League of California Cities. Councilmember Mello also previously served on the League's board of directors. Jerry Mello lived in or near Fort Bragg since 1966, when he began working for the Union Lumber Company as a forester. He was raised in the city of Mount Shasta, and he attended the University of California at Davis and at Berkeley, receiving a Bachelor's of Science in Forestry in February 1964. He received a commission in the U.S. Army upon graduation from Berkeley and served in South Korea and in NORAD on the continent. Upon his employment with the Union Lumber Company, the Army assigned him as a company commander to the local Army Reserve Unit, which he served 6 years in the reserves. Jerry Mello was working as a private security contractor for a local timber company when he was killed. Jerry and his wife, Madeline, have 2 children and have been active in a number of local organizations, but telling that whole biography doesn't tell you much about Jerry Mello. Jerry Mello was a phenomenal community leader. He helped bridge the gap between the historic lumber industry in Fort Bragg into the modern era, and much change in the community. He had to grow and change a lot himself in that process, and he was widely respected as an institution in that community, the go-to person who had the community knowledge. But I also want to comment, and it's hard to because all the facts aren't in, and there's a number of different variables, but what this shooting and another one that took place on the Mendocino coast 2 weeks earlier says about the safety of the public on public lands or private forest lands is truly of concern. And we must get to the bottom of what the cause was here. There were a number of factors involved. There was the production of illegal drugs. But according to the alleged perpetrator's father, this is a person who also has severe mental illness and who was in possession of an automatic weapon and who was protecting his enclave out in the forest with this weapon. He was wearing body armor at the time. It may or may not have been the same individual that carried out the previous shooting earlier, but they're clearly, with the illegal activities that are taking place in the forest lands of Northern California, there's the need for law enforcement, for the public and elected officials to look at this. And there's the tragic price we have paid for the state that things have come to in losing Jerry Mello is huge for all of us. But I do want to also say to his community that loved him, to his now widow, his wife, and his children, that we share in their loss, and we'll miss him very much. And I think in his memory need to examine what contributed to this situation and try to prevent it in the future. Thank you, members, for joining me in honoring Jerry Mello today.
Mr. Gordon.
I want to join my colleague, Mr. Chesbro, in this adjourn in memory. Mr. Chesbro noted that Jerry Mello served as the chair of the Coastal Cities Caucus for the California League of Cities. During that time frame, I happened to be able to serve as chair of the Coastal Counties Caucus of the California State Association of Counties. And there were issues, as have been the case over many years, between local governments and the California Coastal Commission. Jerry Mello was dedicated in his effort to try to work on those issues, and it was his efforts that created an unprecedented meeting of local government officials with the Coastal Commission. He moved things forward in a tremendous way, and the state of California, and particularly those who care about the coast, owe him a great debt of gratitude. I join in adjourning in his memory.
Thank you. Please bring the name to be printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon. What's your pleasure? Okay, pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring SB 244 Wolk to the Committee on Local Government. And we're going to take up another bill. File Item 136. File Item 136, SB 833. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 833 by Senator Vargas and others, enacting to solid waste.
Mr. Hueso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 833 prohibits the construction or operation of a solid waste disposal facility in San Diego County if that facility is located within 1,000 feet of the San Luis Rey River or an aquifer that is connected to that river, or if the facility is within 1,000 feet of that site and is considered sacred or is of spiritual or cultural importance to a federally recognized Indian tribe. Now, this is in regards to a proposition that was put on the ballot in the 90s to evade a decision of the County Board of Supervisors not to support this facility because it would have a detrimental effect on the environment. Now, since that initiative was put on the ballot, San Diego started recycling. In fact, San Diego has exceeded over 70% recycle recovery rates, and the lifespan of the landfills in San Diego have been lengthened. So we have an opportunity to provide an analysis of cost-benefit to the region. If we're going to desecrate important cultural sites and have negative impacts to the community for a facility is not as needed as it was in the 90s, we have that opportunity to correct that ballot initiative without going through the very costly process of putting it back on the ballot. I would request support from all the members here. This bill has received bipartisan support in both houses and has extensive support from the environmental community, the labor community, and numerous Native American tribes. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Garrick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a longtime North County resident, someone whose family ranch next year will be in existence for 50 years, avocados and oranges, that I actually planted when I was 8 years old with my father, I know this area very well. I'm very respectful of the Pala Indian tribe and their tribal significant religious locations. At the same time, this is a project that consists of 1,800 acres, and only 300 of those acres will be used for this. It's been voted on 2 times by the citizens of San Diego County in 1994 and 2004, and it has been in the permitting process and received all the permits over the past 16 years. Needless to say, it has gone through the gauntlet, and yet it's on this floor. There are some issues that need to be discussed and resolved as to its location and a few other items within the 1,800 acres, but at this time I think this bill is premature, and I myself am going to be abstaining, and I'm encouraging my fellow members. This should be an issue that should be decided between the Pala Indians, the federal government, and the local authorities, and the state of California in this case should not be passing one exclusive bill to deal with one 300-acre or 1,800-acre site as it relates to this issue. I encourage a abstention vote. Thank you.
Mr. Alejo.
Madam Speaker and members, last week on this very floor, we approved legislation honoring Native American History Month. And we also honored 4 distinguished leaders of the California Native American community. But one of the best ways we honor them is not just on this floor, not just in symbolic resolutions, but it's in our actions. And that is in supporting and assisting the indigenous people of California, the First Nations of our state, to be able to protect and preserve their most sacred of sites. I visited the Polynesian Reservation many years ago as a young man in San Diego County, and Gregory Mountain is the most sacred site to the Cupeño and Luiseño Indian people, now called the Paula Band of Mission Indians. And this very site is the basis of their creation story. Since time immemorial, this place has been the site for prayer, for ceremony, for spirituality, for rites of passage. And now it's a site where somebody wants to put a landfill, put a dump in their most sacred of sites. My father was an apostolic minister, and my mother was a Sunday school teacher. And at a young age, they taught us that some things are sacred. No matter what your culture, your religion may be, you don't desecrate, you don't defile, you don't disrespect sacred sites and sacred things. And we cannot continue to support these policies that do that. Any student of history will tell you that our state has done this throughout our state's inception. Native people were pushed off their ancestral lands and forced to move to more remote areas. There's nothing different with the Polynesian Reservation. The Cupeño people were forced out of Warner Springs, their ancestral lands known as Cupa, moved to the San Luis River Valley, and that was also known as the Cupeño Trail of Tears, when they were forced off their lands. They were placed in the valley, and now, at their most sacred site, they want to place a landfill. Well, we've seen this story before. Many communities of color being targeted for places to put landfills in. But again, I remember that early story, that some things are sacred, and we don't disrespect, we don't defile, we don't desecrate sacred sites. So I ask everyone here today to stand up with dozens of Indian nations throughout California to oppose that project, support this legislation, and protect those sacred sites in San Diego County. I ask for your support of this bill today.
Mr. Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the floor manager for the bill certainly spoke eloquently on the reasons for its passage, and I know that my colleague from Watsonville spoke very eloquently on one of the issues that is deeply embedded in this bill, and that is the need to preserve sacred sites. The only thing I could add to the eloquent comments of my colleague from Watsonville are that this is not only a piece of Native American history, but it's also a piece of Californian history. And it's our duty, among others in this body, to preserve California history. I actually rise to address some of the comments from my colleague from North San Diego County. People, a lot of times, when arguing against this bill, try to argue that it's a matter of local control, or that it's a matter of the state legislature not stepping in when Congress should step in, or the local people should step in. I take tremendous issue with those comments. People elect us to do a job. That job is to be flexible enough to step in during precisely moments like this. It is our job to step in when an injustice is about to happen. It is our job to step in when a local agency or maybe the feds are not acting. It is our job to act on votes on bills like this and to do the right thing. Colleagues, I would submit that people might have a higher level of respect for us if we do act, and if we do have the flexibility to act on precisely matters like this, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Hueso, you may close.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank everyone for their comments. Posterity will judge us on the decisions we make today, and hopefully, looking back, when we were able to act today to preserve a cultural site in our state that's such deep importance to our history, people are going to remember that we made the right decision today by weighing the benefit of what we're doing today. Remember that our Constitution protects our freedom to worship and our freedom to have our own religion. What happens when we have a site of such religious importance to some of California's residents? What do? How do we act? Do we simply say, let's build this facility simply because the voters approved it? Well, yeah, but when they approved it, We weren't recycling at that time. We weren't taking steps to reduce the level that we were dumping trash into our landfills. We had no recycling program in San Diego at that time. Today, we're doing 70% recycle recovery. And I believe with the increase of technology, we're going to get to 100% in the very near future. When we get there, we're really not going to need these facilities. We're really not going to need to destroy our cultural and natural resources, especially when we're making such drastic efforts to do the right thing by our economy, by our environment. This is the right thing to do. I hope we can get everybody's support on this issue today. Thank you. I recommend an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, noes 1. Measure passes. And we're going to go to file item 160, SB 534. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 534 by Senator Corbett and others, an act relating to victims of sexual assault.
Ms. Skinner.
Madam Speaker and members, SB 534 assures that a victim of sexual assault shall not be billed directly for the forensic medical examination that is a result of the sexual assault crime. What it does is clarify that the medical examination will be treated as a local cost and charged to the local law enforcement agency in whose jurisdiction the offense was committed. However, the local law enforcement agency is able to request reimbursement for that forensic medical examination. The California Emergency Management Agency has funds that will reimburse local law enforcement agencies to cover these costs, and is authorized also to use federal grant funds for these costs. Senate Bill 534 encourages the California Emergency Management Agency to partner with professional organizations when developing the required training course for health professionals relating to the examination and treatment of sexual assault victims. It has bipartisan support, has received no votes, and has no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, no 0. Measure passes. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm giving one-day notice to remove file items A-18 and A-19, SBs 419 and 885 from the inactive file.
Clerk will note. One-day notice granted. Okay, I have an announcement for Senate bills pending on the Assembly floor. Amendments are due at the desk by 5 p.m. or by adjournment on Thursday, September 1st. Friday, September 2nd is the last day to amend bills. Mr. Calderon.
Madam Speaker, you've already reminded the House twice. I just want to do one more time. If you have bills on the Senate floor and you do not have a floor author, you need to get one, because the three pass rule is being enforced over there, and it's different. Over here it's 3 consecutive days. Over there it can just be 3 times in one day, and then it goes on inactive. So you want to make sure that you get authors for your bills on the Senate floor.
Okay, so we have 3 bills left on call. Okay, we're ready to lift the call on the 3 bills. File item 79, SB 263. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 26, noes 34. Measure fails. Mr. Huffman requests notices reconsideration. File item 80, SB 296. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Oops. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 35. Measure passes. And file item 95, SB 16. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.
Urgency, too.
Requires 54. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 51, noes 3. Measure fails. Mr. Perez?
Yeah, notice reconsideration, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Perez notices reconsideration. Okay, the session schedule is as follows. Thursday, September 1st, 10 a.m. Friday, September 2nd, 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hall moves. Ms. Conway seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, September 1st at 10 a.m. GO committee meeting tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Room 4202. GO committee room meeting tomorrow at 9:30 in room 4202. Quorum call is lifted.
Morrell, SB 349, no to aye.
Vote change. Assemblymember Morrell, Assembly Bill 349, no to aye.
Assembly Bill 275, aye to not voting. Ng.
Vote change. Assemblymember Ng, Assembly Bill 279, aye to not voting.
Hey, Russell, I have 3.
You've done it before. You do. After he announces, each one go to the second.
Then I go to the second. I don't mess up all the time. Knight, Bill SB 309, from no to aye.